This is A's Cast Live, your comprehensive look at the Athletics.
Leaping at the wall, it's gone! A towering drive into center field by Rooker.
And 29 other MLB clubs.
A judgy blast. All rise. Here comes the judge.
Swung on, hit high, hit deep to right, away back into the second deck.
Bobby Witt Jr. becomes the first shortstop in Major League history to have two 30-30 seasons.
Shohei Ohtani starts the 50-50 club.
Join us as we take you inside the baseball universe, from humidors to walk-off dingers to Hall of Fame talk. We have you covered. Spend your afternoon with us, only on A's Cast Live. Here's Chris Townsend.
Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to A's Cast Live, as we've got the Athletics taking on the Texas Rangers coming up here just a little bit on A's Cast and the A's Radio Network. Fun show for you today. We like to call him the smartest man in baseball, Doug Glanville, who obviously is Sunday Night Baseball on ESPN, also works for Marquee Sports Network that does the Chicago Cubs. He's a professor at UConn. He's a part of the podcast with Jason Stark, the Hall of Famer on The Athletic, and now has a new newsletter. I mean, it's like, this guy is amazing. Was a really good player in his day, but what he does now in baseball, we love having him on the program. Doug Glanville is going to be here in just a little bit. John W. Miller, he's the new author of the Earl Weaver book, and Last Manager, How Earl Weaver Tricked, Tormented, and Reinvented Baseball. I have seen an interview with him, and I can't wait to get into this because it really is fascinating watching how someone with his background, the way he grew up in St. Louis, how he grew up around bookmakers, including his uncle, and use what bookmakers were using to kind of create his own analytics in the 60s that helped create one of the great organizations of all time in the Baltimore Orioles. World Series champion, the 420-game winners. He was a guy that was thinking about 3-run home runs, walks. Very interesting. So we'll get into that at 3 o'clock. And then Shea Langeliers is back home. We're going to have a little fun. Amelia Schimmel's put together a little No Shea Langeliers vignette, I guess you would call it.
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah, you got to turn your mic on for it to work.
Get to know Shea Langeliers. It's like 1 minute and 3 seconds with some padding, but yeah, it was really well done.
And then we will play you Shea Langeliers. I had a chance to interview him earlier today from the ballpark in Arlington, Globe Life Field, not Globe Life Park, Globe Life Field. So we will talk to Shea Langeliers, and there is something about him when he comes home, because not every guy has that. It's always interesting. Like when you go home, everything changes because you got so many friends and family and ticket requests and people want to see you. And some guys struggle when they go back home. They don't play well. Then other guys, they absolutely thrive. It's I'm in my bed. I get to see my dog. And when he gets to the ballpark, he absolutely thrives. 8 home runs now at Globe Life Field, one of the tops in the history of that new ballpark. Something happens. He sees the ball well. He's super comfortable. We'll ask him about that. Also have to get into the pitching because, as we gave you yesterday, I don't have it in front of me, but in wins, the ERA for the bullpen is 0.67. In losses, it's well over 7, whatever, after yesterday's game. But in wins, they've been, and the team's 15-15, they've been absolutely dynamic. And I got to get into the transition of JP Sears now having to, basically figure out, hey, I have to change who I am if I'm going to survive. Because we talked a little bit about it yesterday, but, when you grow up left-handed, your biggest strength is the fact that you get lefties out. That's a weapon for you. Well, now, you're in the big leagues and you don't see any lefties because they stack the entire lineup against you with right-handers. So now what? Well, you got to figure out, how am I going to beat right-handers on a consistent basis? And JP Sears remade himself. And we'll talk about Luis Severino, who's going today. It's our number one diamond note today, is about the starting pitching. But getting to know Sevy, because Sevy obviously is a big deal. He's the dude. And something that catchers don't get asked a lot, I asked him today. We focus so much on pitchers and what they're doing in these labs and how they're creating new pitches and what they're doing in the offseason and how the Edgertronic cameras and the Rapsodos and all the technology with StatCast and everything we're doing to remake pitches, discover new pitches, the new pitch, the new craze is the kick change, where if you think about a circle change, you're using more pressure with your middle finger, the sweepers in vogue. Well, we only talk about the pitching aspect. What are the catchers? The catchers have to go through this process with you as you're developing new pitches, as you're developing new weapons. They have to learn it. They've got to know when to call it. Because let's face it, you may develop me developing a new pitch, Commander Cody, and it may stink. And you may fall in love with it. And the catcher might have to be like, bro, it doesn't work. Like the catcher's got to be with you when you're talking about developing in the lab a new pitch. He's got to be involved. And then the relationship with the manager. The catcher's relationship with the manager is fascinating because there's some real conversations. Ray Fosse and I used to talk about this all the time. The manager looks over and goes, does he got anything? And you got to be honest, Skip, it's time to go to get the hook. It's time to get this guy out. You got to have some real conversation. So a really good interview coming up here with Shea Langeliers. I'm fired up about it. We did earlier today. He was in the dugout. Shea's really good, to be able to get him one-on-one, get him away. Because once you get guys out of the clubhouse situation, you get them alone. Shea is really, really good. Baylor University, a bright kid, and obviously going to be a big part of the A's for a long time. Before we get to an announcement, there was an announcement made today. How are you, Commander Cody?
I'm good. I have this cough going on, so that's why I'm trying.
Whoa!
I think we're past that part of.
Whoa!
That's still not 6 feet, but.
Whoa!
But other than that, everything's great.
I can't get sick. That's just not in the cards. This is my 31st straight game today.
Well, that's a good streak.
Tomorrow will be the first day off tomorrow.
Well, you didn't say you were going to go 162 like another fellow broadcaster, so.
He does 3 innings a night. I mean, come on. He does 20 minutes of broadcasting a day, and he's bragging about 162. If you want to go word for word, hour for hour count of what I do a day in content versus Johnny Doskow, please. It's not even close. How many hours more do you think that I'll do than him in a full year, let alone a baseball season?
Well, I don't have the numbers in front of me.
And he can't do 162 because the game in Colorado didn't work out. He's at 161.
I think we agreed that I think everyone agreed that they'll let that one slide because that was out of their control.
No. You didn't hear about that?
No.
Oh, we had dinner.
Oh, he changed his mind.
At Frank Fats.
Oh, I went home. Yeah, I didn't go to this dinner.
So it was Chris Carey, Dallas Braden, myself, and he tried to sell that. And I said, because I have a bet with Johnny, he will not make 162. Yes, I'm betting against our own broadcaster.
Team player.
Well, I mean, some people bet against the American dollar. I'm doing the same thing.
I took the under on it too.
You took the under too.
That was a spring training.
and I'm like, hey, when you're in Vegas and you make a prop bet, stuff happens in life. Do you think you're able to take your ticket up and go, hey, this is not fair? And the people at the casino go, you know what? You're right. That's not fair. Here's your money back. That's not how it works. So Johnny has one game to spare. So take a lot of vitamin C, my good friend, Johnny Doskow. This was announced today. I just saw this before we were coming on. A's to open Experience Center offering preview of new ballpark. Athletics announced Wednesday that they will open the Experience Center at Uncommons this fall, providing fans with an up-close look at their future ballpark. The interactive space will showcase seating options, premium experiences, hospitality packages, allowing fans to envision what it will feel like to be part of the team's next chapter in Southern Nevada. Got to tell you, since we're here in San Francisco, I don't know what they did for Golden One Center in Sacramento. I'm sure they did something like this.
G1C, as us locals call it.
And sometimes I get a little fast, I get a little crazy, and I call it GNC. I apologize. It is G1C, and we are veterans now of Kings games, you being the Sacramento Kings fan that you are. And
I've been to multiple games.
Me going to my first Kings game and just beating up the sushi. I beat it up. And those sea salt chocolate chip cookies were delicious. As I said, G1C is a first-class experience. But we have the experience here back in the Bay when they were opening up Chase Center. They had one of these in San Francisco for Warrior fans to see what it was going to be like in the new arena with the seating and everything. And it was incredible. So I cannot wait to get down to Vegas and see this experience, because you really will get an idea, because I've seen like the real renderings where you see exactly what it's going to look like. I'm excited from where we're going to broadcast from. It's going to be absolutely amazing. But yeah, these experience centers really showcase you. And you see it all the time when people are doing new buildings, new golf courses, new whatever. They have this, and they have the virtual tours, and it's like, wow, it's going to be incredible. So that was announced today. That will be happening in the fall in Las Vegas. That excites me. I know we're going to be down there, and we'll probably be doing some shows. Yeah,
so I think it came out when we were driving up here to San Francisco. We got a press release sent to us. So I didn't get a chance to see the Chase Center one, but I'm excited to see what it looks like.
You never went over there?
No. When I got done working in the city, I wanted to go home. I didn't hang out to see what the Warriors were doing. Sorry to all the Warrior fans that may be watching, and the Warrior fans that are in this building at NBC Sports, Bay Area, NBC Sports just overall. The Warriors' big game tonight against the Rockets, Game 5 in Houston. I can't confirm or deny I'm rooting against the Warriors, but I want to see a good series.
Go ahead.
I want to see a good series.
I want you to walk downstairs, and I want you to look at Monty Poole in the face. I want you to look at Chris Mullin, the Hall of Famer. Hall of Famers in the building. One of the great basketball players. There's this thing, you were young. You probably didn't care. It was called the Dream Team.
Yeah, they're pretty good.
Yeah, Chris Mullin was on it. Yeah, the Hall of Famers down there. Go down there. Just go down there and tell them, yeah, Warriors are going to get work tonight in Houston.
I never said work. The Rockets don't score.
I mean,
but they play good defense.
Go down there. Why don't you go down and talk big to Chris Mullin, the Hall of Famer?
Well, I'm no hoop head. Well, I mean, I am when it comes to talking with Ken Korak, but Mullin might have me beat.
What, Ken Korak talk about UNLV basketball back in the day?
Him and I were talking Joker and Sabonis the whole time at the game.
Hey, UNLV back in the day, we have nil money now. I mean, the UNLV people got to be going, really? You tried to bust us all those years, and now you're giving these guys more money than we ever gave any of Grandma Ma and Stacey Augmon and Moses Scurry and all those guys.
By the way, I got confirmation we don't have to be out of here at 3:30.
Yeah, we're almost going to get kicked out of here.
No, we're good.
It's almost going to be a short. It's packed here today here in San Francisco. Giants are playing right now against the Padres. Warriors are coming up.
Warriors are at 4:30. Yeah.
I mean, it's our pregame A's Cast on NBC. We're going to be on in the same studio, like just right after the Warriors. So they're going to be walking out. We're going to be walking in. And if you want me to stand up to Chris Mullin for you,
I don't think we need to.
Our friend Bonte Hill from our 95.7 The Game.
We saw Bonte earlier, but
I don't think you got the guts to go down there and tell him.
I don't need
Steph Curry's overrated. And he's
whoa. I would never say that about Steph.
You don't got the guts.
I did forget my Draymond Green jersey. But by the way, the Glanville interview, if we want to play, we should probably play it now.
Wait, I haven't even gotten into my pitching matchup today, because normally we don't even talk pitching matchups, because I'm like the last human being that cares. We've got a real pitching matchup today. Are you kidding me? Severino against Eovaldi. Eovaldi is killing it this year once again. He leads the majors in WHIP, 0.74. He leads the American League in strikeout to walk ratio. The guy's had 14 Tommy Johns he's put together on duct tape. How old is he now? 37, 38? He's got to be 37.
I think he's at least 35.
I'm saying 37.
Eovaldi is 35.
35. He's had 7 Tommy Johns, and he's still he's the one. So he's had 2.
Him and DeGrom back to back.
But I think he's had 3 elbow procedures.
Yeah, back in the day.
He's been the one guy that has survived the elbow surgeries and still been able to be at a extremely high level.
Yeah,
because what happens is, folks, I know you can't see this if you're listening on A's Cast or you're listening on the A's radio network, 650 KST in Sacramento, but they drill holes in the bones in your elbow or outside your elbow, and that's how they reconnect. And what happens is you can only drill so many holes. You can only have so many Tommy Johns. And we have now seen guys come back. It's hard to come back from one, let alone two. He is really the one player that you think about. 2 Tommy Johns, elite level. I mean, what he did in the World Series with the Boston Red Sox against the Dodgers in that extra innings game was just amazing. And it's earned him the big contract. And he just got another. They just extended him there in Texas. So he's, DeGrom is obviously one of the greats of his era. But Eovaldi's a dude. And he's owned the A's. Like he's 3-0 with a 1.54 in his last 8 starts against the A's. And then you got Severino going, who he is our dude. When you think about you're putting your best out there today. Yesterday was an absolute stinker. I don't even want to talk about it. Flushed it. Don't even remember it. Lopez has already been sent down. To watch a pitcher 84 pitches in 2 2/3 innings it's a tough watch. We researched it. It's literally unbelievable. I'm like, how many guys in the history of baseball, or at least recently, have done it? The last 3 pitchers in all of baseball to have 84 or more pitches in 2 2/3 innings are all A's.
Hold on, let me guess. I saw this list yesterday, but I'm trying to see if I remember.
We sent it to you.
I know, but I don't remember. I'm saying Cap was on there. James Caprillion.
He was down. So, yes, he was on the list. He was down. The last three. I remember seeing Montas, but he would have been down more too. No. So you got who did the A's just have that was a Nuke LaLoosh type approach? Oh, Joe Boyle. He was the third. Who was traded for Jacob Lopez? Well, Jacob Lopez was part of the trade. So who was the last pitcher in baseball, at least 84 pitches in 2 2/3? You got to understand, that's hard to do. To think that you're allowed to be out there that long. You threw 84 pitches. DeGrom threw 65 pitches in 6 innings. You threw 84. That means you're all over the joint. He was at a full count to every batter in the first inning. I mean, it was like a high wire act, and you're like, it was like being on a boat and knowing that holes are opening on the boat and it's leaking. It's like, this boat's going down. Like the whole time watching, I'm like, this is not good. And eventually it ended up with Mitch Spence. Oh, the last 3 pitchers in all of baseball. There's 29 other teams. It's A's pitchers are the last 3 guys to have at least 84 pitches in 2 2/3 innings. Unbelievable. So I'm fired up about the Diamond Note. I know we're gonna have to get to Doug Glanville here, but Diamond Note number 1. We don't have enough time. Why? Who's at 3? The John Miller. You can push him back. Okay. You can push him back. All right, Doug Glanville. We have to break at 57, so it's not going to be enough time. You guys are really killing me with your structure. We can play Glanville after the author. And we got Langeliers at what, 3:40? Yeah. Play the video for Langeliers and get to know Langeliers and play that to end the show. Okay. All right, so then I'll keep going with the Diamond Note. So Diamond Note number 1 today, we got it. I don't know how they're going to be in the game. This is not going to be starters being out. And I'm looking forward to see some high-level pitching tonight. Well, this is a really good matchup. Severino's great on the road. I mean, I went and looked, and Amelia Schimmel cursed at me essentially for trying to jinx Severino. I'm not jinxing. I'm just I'm doing the research. He hasn't given up a hit to a right-handed batter on the road. How does she feel you were jinxing him? Because I said he was doing I called him a road warrior. Not road warrior, hawk, or animal. So she thinks that our text thread could jinx what happens in Arlington, Texas, which is how many hundreds of miles away? A long way away. Well, I mean, it's at least a 3-hour something flight. Yeah. So far on the road, Severino's 1-0 with a 0.64 ERA, 7 strikeouts, 4 walks, and 1 earned run. Opponents are hitting 130 against him. Diamond Note number 2, to quote Tom Cable, the former Raiders head coach, we're not losers anymore. Anybody remember that?
I always thought for a while. I remember him saying it. Then I remember Hugh Jackson had some good quotes.
Hugh Jackson said we're building a bully. Yeah. Tom Cable said we're not losers anymore. And Al Davis heard that and said, "You're out of here." The A's, no matter what, will finish this month. Well, no, that's not correct. I can't believe you told me that. They lose today, be 15-16. No, that because the March April. Games. Yeah. Yes. All right. So the A's have clinched at least a winning month in the month of
500 month. 500.
At least a 500. I'm assuming a win today for the first time since 2021 in April. So we did a big thing yesterday about, hey, this regime is winning for the first time. But there are steps. There's steps to this process. Is this a perfect team? We all know it's not. But they're starting to learn how to win. And to say, listen, after how bad things have been, and we are so used to bad starts with the A's. That stuff's got to change, right? I know our assistant general manager, Billy Owens, went on Sirius XM and laughed about it, said, I've been here for 20-something years and we've never started. Well, you know what? That's got to end. That has to end. The days of starting slow and hoping that you're going to turn it around, and yet sometimes it happens. Well, sometimes it doesn't, and it makes for a really long season. You do not want to be where the Braves are right now. You do not want to be where the Orioles are right now. If you're a team with expectations and you're playing the it's early game, well, all of a sudden, you know what happens? You run out of calendar time, and now it's not early. And your season's done. Because you put yourself so behind the eight ball, you're now expecting everybody else around you to play bad. So you have to not only way up your game, but you need everybody else to fall. And is everybody going to fall to you? Well, if you're in the National League, don't expect that. The National League right now is dominant.
The Braves are lucky because they started 0-7. No team has ever started 0-7, made the postseason. I think they're a game under now. But the Orioles, they had that win against Sugano, pitched really well against the Yankees. Everyone's like, okay, here we go, including myself included. And then yesterday they get trounced by the Yankees, giving up 4 home runs in the first inning, including back-to-back-to-back. But yeah, the National League is, really good. I mean, just with the NL West alone.
Obviously the Dodgers, since we're here, San Francisco, San Diego, Arizona, the New York Mets, the Philadelphia Phillies. I mean, the National League is loaded right now.
Cubbies.
So if you get off to a bad start, good luck. Because you're going to need you end up needing an extreme amount of help. So that's why it's important to say, you know what, for the A's in April, in a start, at least a 500 month. And if you win today, your first winning month in April since 2021. And by the way, 2021 seems like light years away.
Well, I mean, we know what happened a few years after that. So that team, remember, we were so excited. We brought it up yesterday. We were so excited about that team in 2021 because that's the Marte trade and how exciting that was the second half of the year. Now, can we see a trade like that happen this year if the team competes? We were talking about on the way up here about looking at guys that could be potentially moved to play third base. Not a good list of people that are free agents.
Bad list. You start bringing up, can Giancarlo Stanton play third? By the way, he has not played with his bad elbows.
Well, they got Ben Rice. I don't think they're too worried.
With his bad elbows and that contract. All right, Diamond Note number 3. And I thought this was interesting today, as Jeff Passan has put out an article on ESPN.com where he has talked about things that we have seen so far, changes, rules, 2025. Well, offense, we start looking at it. Strikeouts, what we're seeing. You're seeing a lot of teams. We were listening earlier today. If we have time, we're going to get to it, to Josh Stein, the assistant general manager of the Padres, where they are talking about contact. We had Eno Saris, our national baseball columnist from The Athletic, on the program, talking about barrel percentage, but contact. Not just how hard do you hit it, how often do you hit it, and how hard you hit it. Stop with the 3 true outcomes of home run, strikeout, walks. Start making more contact. And teams are now, something I've talked about, I've kind of tried to include golf. Biomechanics is the rage. We're not going to XFIP you and weighted runs created plus and BABIP and what your expected ERA is. It's how does the human body work? How does Cody's body work versus my body? How can we analyze that? How can we make you better? Biomechanics is the rage in our game now. So there's a lot of things that we're talking about in baseball where walks are up a little bit, contact's a little bit better, time of game. Where was the time of game? Did you take that out?
Yeah, I did. Here, let me put it. I can bring it back.
Because it's
it's about the same. It's 237 this year, 236 last year.
So time of game is good. I mean, if we could get rid of these blowout games like we saw yesterday, and there was a ton, Kike Hernandez came out in the protective visor. That was hilarious.
Yeah. And
how are you on position players pitching, as the A's have now used a position player twice?
Same guy.
Best one ever was Ike Davis.
Oh, yeah.
Ike Davis back with the A's, big lefty first baseman. He pitched, played at Arizona State. He came out and he actually threw some flame. Where are you on a team using a position player to pitch when they're the team in the lead?
If they're up by 10, I know the rules. If you're up by 10 or whatever, you can throw a position player in there. If you want to save your bullpen, I'm fine with it if you're winning. I mean, I know Kike was just throwing meatballs up there the whole time, and the Marlins didn't really do much. I mean, then again, it looked like, I hate to say it, but they hated going against our guy Sandy Alcantara. But
those games at that point, to me, it doesn't matter. No one's watching. You see the ratings just go down, ratings go down, everything just goes down. No one, once the game's out of hand, people have changed. It doesn't. People get up in arms. It's like, and those stats don't matter. Even though at the end of the year you'll be like, this guy did. You're like, that's where context and stats need to happen more in our game. I talk about it all the time. The point that we're bringing up from this article is that stolen bases are way up, except for the A's. You talk about winning on the margins, the little things that you need to do to get better. We have the fewest stolen bases in baseball.
Yeah, the next closest is the Rockies.
That's not
14.
good.
Yeah,
that's not good. We have too much athleticism. We just have way too much athleticism. Let's pause for station identification right here on A's Cast. Using old bookie numbers to create analytics? Come on, doesn't get any better than that. Talking the Hall of Famer Earl Weaver next right here on A's Cast Live.
A's shortstop Jacob Wilson joined Towny on A's Cast Live to discuss the hitting insights he's gained from his father, Jack.
The main thing for me has always been the hands. Being able to push the hands back into a certain slot that, I want them to be in to, produce as much force as I can. We talked about kind of throwing a punch. Like you don't want to throw it from a very small angle. You want to really wind
static.
Out.
You don't want to be still static.
Yeah, you don't want to static. You kind of want to reach back and be able to produce as much power as you can. So that's always kind of where the hands come from. Being able to push the hands back and really getting into that stance when you want to hit is kind of like, a basketball defender. You don't want to be you don't want to stand up too much because the guy can go around you. You don't want to be too low. You kind of want to be right in that sweet spot. So just being able to get to that point and being able to, get the hands back where they need to be and just, being ready to hit. These guys throw a lot of strikes. They throw a lot of good pitches. So just be able to be as good spot as I can is kind of the main approach.
You can watch the full interview at youtube.com/athletics or listen at athletics.com/A'sCast.
Here's the pitch, and it's a hit. Folsom Lake Ford has stepped up again, winning the Triple Crown Award, Ford Motor Company's highest honor, now 7 years in a row. Folsom Lake Ford is a top sales leader in the U.S., along with being top in customer satisfaction in sales, service, and finance. Now that's a home run. Don't miss the huge savings on your favorite models at your truck headquarters. Folsom Lake Ford in the Folsom Auto Mall.
A's closer Mason Miller joined Chris Townsend on A's Cast Live ahead of opening day to discuss the thrill of closing out games for the Athletics.
You always like that juice. I mean, in college, you'd have to go complete games, starter to get to it. But, there's nothing that beats that feeling of getting the final out of the game, high-fiving all your teammates and getting into the locker room with a win. So I've liked the big moment. I've liked it. I think I've been able to keep a pretty even head about it, though, and I think that helps me have more success in that role, that I don't get too high or too low. I just know that if I get 3 outs, I got the job done. It doesn't have to be pretty. I don't have to be perfect, but it's you either got it done or you didn't, and I think there's something liberating in that.
You can watch the full interview at youtube.com/athletics or listen at athletics.com/A'sCast.
And here's the pitch to Tyler. Swung on, drilled to right, way back. Martini at the track. He will turn and watch it fly.
That swung on, drive to deep right field. Going back, Palacios, and it is gone.
2 payoff pitch, and Soderstrom launches this one to deep.
A's Cast Live continues from NBC Sports. Here's Chris Townsend.
Do we have John W. Miller on?
Here, yeah.
John, how are you? Chris Townsend, A's Cast Live. Of course, the book is The Last Manager, How Earl Weaver Tricked, Tormented, and Reinvented Baseball. I think for some of us who are old enough, we remember the Orioles as such a dominant team. There was a thing called the Oriole Way, where everybody came up through their system. And it's so interesting that you did a book on, I think for a lot of younger baseball fans, Earl Weaver just seems like the old guy in clips that came out and cussed out umpires, and it's funny. But you realize he was truly one of the great managers. He was a dysfunctional guy. He was hard on his players, yet they respected him so much. I can't wait to read the book. What was it like doing this book and talking about a manager that, let's face it, he's one of the greats of all time?
Well, like you said, the story is only relevant because he was a winner. Otherwise, he's just a cartoon character or a clown. He still has the record for highest winning percentage of any manager with over 1,000 wins since divisional play started in 1969. The Orioles won 5 of the first AL East titles of all time, losing 2 of those in the ALCS to the A's, by the way, in 73 and 74. But he was a visionary. He was the first manager to use data in the dugout, analytics, if you will, the first manager to use a radar gun. So very, very much a pioneer who really...
Well, we lost you for a second. You were saying he was a pioneer, which is fascinating when you think of what radar has become, from radar guns to what StatCast is now, analytics in the dugout to where now we have iPads. To think he was the first guy, but we lost you when you said he was a pioneer.
Yeah, so he was the first to use a radar gun. He foreshadowed modern baseball. You know, in the book Moneyball, there's a whole page about Earl Weaver, about how he was there before anybody else. You know, Billy Beane said he would like to hire the next Earl Weaver as his manager. And so he's a very important person in baseball history in being such a transformative, prophet of modern baseball. And so that's why the book was, why it works, why his story is relevant, and why it was so fun to report on, because I got to find the original Oriole Way document in the Hall of Fame in Cooperstown, New York. I got to talk to the old players like Jim Palmer, Bobby Grich, Cal Ripken, and ask them what the Oriole Way actually entailed, which was a very strong focus on fundamentals, pitching and defense, throwing strikes, the power part, the 3-run homer part that came later in Earl's career. But he was very dynamic as a thinker, very innovative, great beginner's mindset, always open to change, always open to new ideas, and that makes him a great character to read about.
And with that said, he was hard-nosed. He was hard on his players. The relationship, we've always heard about the relationship between him and Jim Palmer, his star pitcher. Today we just had a conversation with our own manager, Mark Kotze, where we have a bunch of young players, and it's important for Kotze to really get to know the young players, understand the young players. Some of these young players are the age of his oldest, his daughter. So it's like he kind of has to understand and nurture these guys, to where Earl Weaver was hard-nosed on his players.
Yeah, well, he thought that he would give you, hell, because he thought if you couldn't handle him, you probably couldn't handle Goose Gossage in the 9th inning of a close game. So he was tough because he thought, they have to be able to handle me being a jerk, and that way they'll play well under pressure. But every player who played for him, they might have hated him while they played for him, but after they retired, they realized he got the best out of people because he had a singular focus on playing the game the right way and pushing players to be the best version of themselves. And he didn't play favorites. He didn't hold grudges. he could cuss somebody out, and the next day everything was forgotten. He only cared about winning, and that made him a great leader and a great motivator in a way that is still relevant today. And Matt, I interviewed a dozen current managers for this book, and they all said, what hasn't changed is trying to motivate players, whether it's being, kind like Katse or more cruel like Earl. The Earl could be kind with Eddie Murray, for example. Eddie Murray was a sensitive young man, and Earl was nice to him to the point where other players would tease Eddie and call him Earl's favorite son.
The Hall of Famer, one of the great switch hitters, Eddie Murray. Something that I found, and I've heard an interview with you before, and I found really fascinating, because when we watch MLB Network now, and you watch a lot of games, there's gambling everywhere. We're talking about, they're doing prop bets every single day on MLB Network. They're talking about prop bets. Sirius XM, the MLB channel, they're talking about gambling's everywhere now in baseball. MGM's one of the biggest sponsors, DraftKings. But back in those days, it was so taboo. And talk about how Earl Weaver, I believe he grew up in St. Louis. His uncle was a bookie. He understood the whole gaming aspect, and he used what bookies and what people were gambling and how they looked at the numbers. Those were part of his analytics. And back in those days, that stuff was a no-go in baseball.
Well, gambling was taboo maybe for big league teams to talk about, but it was always there, never went away. There's probably never been a major league game without gambling on it. In the 40s, it was $1 billion business, and bookies would patrol the right field grandstand in St. Louis, where Earl grew up. Earl grew up next to Sportsman's Park, which had two major league teams, the Cardinals and the Browns in the American League. So there was baseball every day of the year between April and September. And Earl would go to games with his uncle, Bud, his favorite uncle, who was a bookmaker, who was arrested all the time for running illegal sports gambling operations, had his own bar, the Parkview Buffet, and the cops would raid the Parkview, and Uncle Bud would scamper out the back door with his betting sheets. So that was Earl's favorite uncle, he calls him. So, all of Earl's kind of like his street hustlers, toughness, also the darkness, the violence, the anger you sensed, the wit, the sense of humor, the wise guy kind of the way of being, that all came from his Uncle Bud. And if you think about it, I mean, it's the same, like you point out, it's the same part of the economy now that's controlled by, corporations like FanDuel and DraftKings. But back then it was part of the informal economy, and that was run by the mob. And these guys weren't dropping bodies. They weren't, pulling bullets in people. They were running these illegal parts of the economy like the gambling. And so I found these gambling guides from the 40s and 50s that are kind of like proto-analytics that recommend, for example, to evaluate pitchers, don't look at won-loss records, look at strikeouts per walk. Or the intentional walk is a dumb idea, the sacrifice bunt's a dumb idea. These are things that gamblers kind of knew before anybody else. And Earl Weaver, he learned all that. He learned the probabilities of the odds of baseball. Baseball is a game of lots of binary outcomes with certain odds. And Earl Weaver learned how to calculate those odds better than anybody else. And that's what made him a great manager.
Do you go into how he really talked about it with other people? It's one thing if you're doing it, but we need to take people back. I mean, it's stated in every single clubhouse, do not gamble. You gamble, like talking any type of numbers like this back in the 60s, 70s, people would be looking over their shoulders like, whoa, this is like, did you find out how he incorporated, who he trusted in, who he could talk to about this stuff?
I mean, he's on the record talking about the games using gambling analogies. I mean, not about baseball, but he'd say like, that game was like a dog race where I bet on the top two dogs and then they bit each other and fell out of the race. Or if we were playing blackjack tonight, we'd be getting, dealt a 13 on every hand. And so he was pretty liberal about talking about the ponies, the dogs. He loved poker. He loved cards. He never was accused of betting on baseball, and I found no evidence of that. So he was smart enough to be discreet about how and when to bet. He had friendly wagers with the writers. They would have like dollar bets on who would hit a home run the next day, and he and the writers would bet on that, and they never got punished for that. Or he would give the writers advice about which teams to bet on in Vegas, and that was pretty open. I mean, I don't know. I guess there was a hard line about if you got caught and if it made headlines, I think you be punished. But I'm sure lots of players and managers were involved in some informal way. I mean, if you talk to people off the record, they'll say, of course, gambling is a great prism for analyzing baseball. You know, it's such an odds-based, probability-based game. You know, and it's always been there. Just in the shadows, and obviously the stigma of the Black Sox scandal and Pete Rose made it taboo, like you said.
And when he came out of that dugout and the microphones were on and he was going after umpires, you can still see and hear some of it now on YouTube. There's the legendary manager shows that he would do where I'm sure the FCC and the people back at the radio station were like, oh my God, he's cursing. But he was just, I mean, we look at it now, it was really funny. I mean, obviously I was born in 72. But some of the stuff that you hear, and I've done a lot of managers show, I mean, wow, he was an entertainer and very crude at the same time.
So you're referring to the Manager's Corner, which was a spoof that he did with his buddy, who was the radio host, Tom Marr. And they sent that in as a joke to the host station, you know, not thinking it would ever get out there and get leaked, which of course it was. And obviously none of those words we can say here on the A's Cast. But listeners should YouTube it. And that was a joke. And it sort of showcases Earl's incredible sense of humor, incredible wit. You know, like you couldn't write, you know, David Simon of The Wire could not write a better, you know, copy than Earl Weaver going off. You know, his use of you know, the F word, which one of the umpires told me if they'd taken that word out of the dictionary, Earl Weaver would have been a mute. You know, his use of the King's English, if you will. And then the hot mic with Bill Haler was also not meant to be ever broadcast to the world. But that was so evocative and colorful. I mean, it's 3 or 4 minutes of these guys going at each other. And, you know, Ron Shelton, the great Hollywood scriptwriter who wrote the movie Bull Durham, told me he used that hot mic to write the script of Bull Durham, the scene where Kevin Costner fights the umpire. So Earl Weaver also had, you know, big impact, great legacy on baseball and American culture. He's kind of the archetype of managers going out and fighting the umpires. I tell the younger readers, you know, only, you know, you think of professional wrestling, like Hulk Hogan was the vibe he gave when he would come out and the whole stadium would rise to their feet and watch this little guy barking. And he'd do insane things like sit on home plate like a Buddha or fake a heart attack or throw an umpire out of a game. And in the minors, he once got so angry he climbed up the center field flagpole and they couldn't get him down and they had to call the fire department as if he was a cat. So, you know, he had a sense of theatricality, this guy. Like he saw baseball as a carnival, kind of like the vaudeville shows in the 30s when he was growing up.
I mean, think about it. It's like Savannah Bananas meets.
That's exactly it. Savannah Bananas. Great call. Yeah, it's a great, great idea. Like Earl grew up within the St. Louis Cardinals clubhouse because his dad did laundry for the Cardinals. And the Cardinals had their own cowboy band, and they would play on the trains when they would go on road trips. And they very much saw baseball as kind of a circus. And Dizzy Dean, these famous characters, Dizzy Dean, Ducky Medwick, these guys, you know, would perform for the fans. Like vaudeville or, you know, pantomiming, kind of old school and entertainment.
You know, it's amazing that people used to cringe at that. And now, like NFL films, we can't get enough of it. When they have, when you're on the sidelines of an NFL game, there's the crudest language you're going to hear. There's yelling. And the mics are everywhere, catching everything and bleeping everything. Well, that was Earl Weaver too. It was just a different era. Can you imagine if you would have had like the documentary that they've done with the Red Sox or they do with other single teams and they followed him around and the Orioles around with all that great pitching? Would have been amazing.
I thought about that. You know, I coach high school baseball and I told my kids, these guys use words you guys never even heard of. They were so crude.
Well, thank you so much for coming on. I can't wait to read it. The Last Manager, how Earl Weaver tricked, tormented, and reinvented baseball. We really appreciate the time and good luck with the book.
Yeah, thanks, Chris. Anytime. All the best.
Yeah, I heard about this book and I was like, I got to read it because it's fascinating. Think about that. The guy's management problems. He was hard on his players, but yet he was brilliant at the same time. And the way he looked at numbers and analyzed numbers. Gambling was a big part. His favorite uncle. You know, being around organized crime. And that all built what we thought was the model organization of the time. Think about that. The Oriole way. If you're old enough to remember, because it kind of went away at some point I would say in the 80s, maybe early 90s. But that was still with Cal Ripken Jr. and Eddie Murray, and they carried that on in the 80s. They won their title in the 80s. It was the Oriole way, but that was started with Earl Weaver. Once again, a guy who grew up around organized crime, who grew up around gambling, who was crude, cruel, drinking problem, all these things that would make people just cringe is what built this pristine Oriole way. Pretty fascinating when you think about it. What do you got? You're just looking at me.
Well, I thought we were going to play Glanville. That's why I was sitting off camera.
Oh, wow. I think it's a damn good point.
I liked all of it. Plus, John's a high school baseball coach right outside of Pittsburgh, so he's a Western PA guy.
I can't wait to because it reminds me. Bob Melvin told me a story about white-haired manager Sparky Anderson.
Oh, so Whitey Herzog?
Bob Melvin told me a story when he was when Bob came up. So Bob came up, I think it was 85. The Tigers had one of the greatest teams of all time, the 84 Tigers, that got out to a 35-5 start and just blitzed everybody. Truly one of the great baseball teams of all time. Bob joined them right after that. So they had all these star players, right? Trammell, Whitaker, Parrish, all these guys, Jack Morris. And Bob told me a story because this stuff shapes you, right? Your early years in life and the people who are your managers or who are your bosses, like all of us, the people that we first work for, they help shape us in a good or bad way. We take some of the good and we don't want to take the bad. But Bob made a mistake in Detroit. Sparky Anderson wouldn't talk to him for 2 weeks. 2 weeks. And then finally, it was in the outfield during BP. Sparky came up right next to Bob. Now you think of how big of a guy Bob Melvin. What's Melvin? 6'5"?
Yeah, he's a big human.
That's why we always sat down while we did the Bob Melvin show. We never stood while we did the Bob Melvin show. So this little guy, Sparky Anderson, comes, stands right next to Bob, won't even look at him. Remember, Bob's mate, and it was like a stupid. Remember, Bob was a catcher. He did something. It wasn't that big of a deal. Sparky was so mad at him. He didn't talk to his young, hotshot prospect. It'd be like Nick Kurtz. This would be like Nick Kurtz made a mistake and Mark Kotze doesn't talk to him for 2 weeks. So Sparky comes up, stands next to him, looks straight ahead, won't even look at Bob. And he says, "Do you know why I'm mad at you?" That was his communicating with Bob Melvin. You want to talk about how different we look at sports and how to nurture players and get the best out of players versus the old school managers. Earl Weaver, by the way, just YouTube it. He's got fun of this. Some of the funniest. He and managers would go after it. It was like it seemed fake. It seemed like this was staged. Like, oh, this is a show that we're doing on Apple TV or Netflix. I mean, no, this was real. He'd go out there and they would just scream at each other, and it was just, and the umpires would give it right back to him. It was definitely a different game.
We know one guy we should have on at some point is Tim Kirkshin, because he covered Earl Weaver and he knows him really well. Like, he'd be a good guy to tell Earl Weaver stories, because he always talks about it on the Baseball Tonight podcast with Buster Olney about how, all the stories he's had covering Earl Weaver and those Oriole teams. Like, he's someone that's been around. Like, I'm sure his stories are a wealth of knowledge.
All righty. Earlier today,
we're going to have to cut it off early again.
Why?
It's 13 and a half minutes. We have to worry about commercial breaks now.
Can't we go to the break a little late?
That's not up for me to decide. We can play half now and half when we come back.
Why don't we do Shea?
Sure.
Do we have Amelia Schimmels?
Yeah.
All right, we're gonna do Shea Langeliers here.
Well, Shea's 9 minutes, so
that works.
Okay.
Right?
Well, I mean, we're still pushing late into the break.
How am I supposed to do content?
Shea was, I think, 9:30.
So that doesn't work either.
Yeah, no. And then Amelia's video is a minute. So you're looking at 11 minutes there. We can play Glanville when we get back from break. We can probably break a little early. Not right now.
Can we break a little early? I remember back in my old terrestrial radio days, we had a little fluctuation with the breaks. We're not in radio in 2025. We have no fluctuation. It is hard outs. I know top of the hour is a hard out.
Yes.
Okay.
Mark, can we break a couple minutes earlier than 27? So there we go. Maybe go to like 25 or 4. We have.
All right.
So we got about 5 more minutes or so.
Well, I do think that conversation, I can't wait to read the book.
He just texted me that the book's in the mail. So he's sending it.
Yeah. And we'll give out a couple copies once we get the book. And I find it, you look at a guy, we talked about Ron Washington, 73 years old. What's Bochy, 70?
Yeah, I believe he's 70 now.
You're thinking about, you're managing guys that are, what does a 20-year-old do a 70-year-old? You're managing a guy who's 22, 23, 24.
Snitker's up there too, right? Isn't he close to 70?
Yeah. I mean, it's like you're managing your grandkids.
I mean, it's not Jack McKeon managing again.
But I mean, think about it. It's like managing your grandkids. And that's and the way you have to be able to communicate. Part of what you do, we could play right now. Part of what we do is we could play the stuff from MLB Now today.
Oh, the biomechanic.
Well, I do want to stress this, is that we now truly care about the players more than just as data. We have people to help with mental health. We do everything we can to put the players not only physically in the best positions to succeed, but we also do everything we can from the mental aspect. That's one of the things that is coming out in this Boston Red Sox Netflix, because all the stuff that we've seen in these type of documentary type deals, it's always about the teams that win, right? For the most part. The Red Sox, Millar, heard an interview with Millar, and he's, everything about him is, oh, look, you guys came back, you're down 3-0, and they do the documentary, and you come back for the first time ever in the ALCS, and you take down the Yankees in 2004, and you end up winning the first ever championship. So you break the curse of the Bambino and all that kind of stuff, and there's always the glory at the end. Well, this Red Sox team was not very good last year. And so it really takes you behind the scenes of what these young men are dealing with on a daily basis. And so when you have coaches like Scott Emerson, like Darren Bush, like Eric Martins, these guys, it's just not all, hey, listen, this is how you hit better. This is how you pitch better. There are times, and we talked with Mark Kotze, I believe was it in the last one where we talked about, hey, at times with these young kids, you just got to put your arm around them.
Yeah.
Let them know it's going to be okay. And every manager is having to deal with that probably more than ever, because we all have these R&D, these research and development, and they all have their own little fancy names to it, but there's research and development. They call them R&D. It's basically where all your baseball nerds are, who are, crunching everything, and they're coming up, and they're not going to do that. The front office is not going to do that, which I would say that's not really the case. It's always been with the Athletics. Billy Beane has always had very good relationships with the players back in the day, and you've seen that carry over as David Force has learned under Billy Beane, that you see David Force in the clubhouse, and David Force can go in and he can talk to the players, and they know David. There's a lot of GMs. You may not understand, but there's GMs that players don't really know the GM.
Yeah, I mean,
they don't know. Like, these are just guys that are up somewhere and they're producing numbers, and they talk to your agent. You don't negotiate your contract. So you'll see the GM at spring training. You'll see these guys, but you may not really ever have a relationship with some of the GMs in baseball. That's not the case. As we always talk about, the Athletics are more like a family run business. But yeah, I mean, you now have to worry about the mental side of where, if you want to get what's best out of the players, you've got to worry about the mental side almost as much sometimes as the physical side. Yeah, and we're kind of seeing it now more. I mean, especially with the organization, you're seeing it with a lot of the guys. Kotze's been really good at nurturing the guys. He had a good, I ended up putting it on social, talking about being the disciplinarian and then building relationships with players. And it was a really good answer, talking about how, he wants to take those guys under the wing, and then also being a disciplinarian. I think the way that we do it, that the organization does it, has been very, very good under Mark Kotze. And I can't say every organization is like that, because there's been some bad organizations and how they're run, and we know all about the Astros. Oh, really bad. Really, really bad. Where the human didn't matter. Yeah, it was all about numbers and winning. And very rarely does that work. And I wonder if that's starting to catch up with the Orioles.
Yeah, I mean, Mike Elias is from the Astros tree, so I mean,
well, he's your cousin,
Uncle Mike,
Uncle Mikey. He's almost like the same age as you, isn't he?
Yeah, he's a little older.
All right. Coming up next, we got 2 spectacular interviews. You see him on Sunday Night Baseball. He's one of the tops in the game, Doug Glanville, and then also Athletics catcher. You do not want to miss this conversation. And we're going to play a little piece on Get to Know Shea. Why is his name Shea?
It's a good answer.
It's a good question.
Well,
you'll get the answer.
Good answer, yes.
All right, that's all coming up next right here on A's Cast Live.
When it comes to knocking it out of the park, nobody beats Folsom Lake Ford. Folsom Lake Ford is a 7-time Triple Crown Award winner, Ford Motor Company's highest honor, for being the best in customer satisfaction in sales, service, and finance. Step up to the plate for our biggest selection of new Ford models, including the legendary F-150, on sale now. Shop Folsom Lake Ford, your truck headquarters in the Folsom Auto Mall. FolsomLakeFord.com.
That ball is out of here.
A's shortstop Jacob Wilson joined Towny on A's Cast Live to share his approach when stepping into the batter's box.
Yeah, I go out there every day. You kind of have to have a different mindset up here. You're facing the best pitchers in the world pretty much. So just to be able to go up there and look for a pitch that you want to hit in a certain count and kind of being able to go up there and have good battles against these pitchers. When they want to hit a spot, they usually tend to hit that spot, and you should try to capitalize on the mistakes. If they leave a slider hanging or leave a fastball down the middle, you just try to kind of attack on those pitches, because if you miss those, it's gonna be tough to get another one like that, because these guys up here are just so good. So you just try to go up there and just have good at bats. Try to get on base, try to put the ball in play, and more times you get on base, odds are you're gonna score more runs for your team. So kind of my mindset going into it, just going up there and having good at-bats.
You can watch the full interview at youtube.com/athletics or listen at athletics.com/A'sCast.
Unlock offers and receive exclusive in-game features by downloading the MLB Ballpark app for iPhone and Android today. Plus, get the latest information on game time, schedules, and more.
Calling all college and grad students. Grab your friends and head to the ballpark with this special offer. Save up to 50% off select regular season games throughout the 2025 season. Get your discounted tickets at athletics.com/student.
A's center fielder J.J. Bleday joined Towny on A's Cast Live and discussed his experience using the torpedo bat.
I've been using it during the homestands, and it feels like any other bat. Like when you feel it, pick it up, you hit it, it feels like any other bat. But with that being said, there have been some times where I make really flush contact and it doesn't feel like it's going as hard as it would a normal bat. So, the theory behind it is moving the barrel downwards the handle for guys who have more contact closer to the handle, to where, if you get fisted a little bit, it could potentially be a pull side home run or oppo bomb or whatever the case is. For me, I just think it's all a feel-based thing. And, there have been times where I think it feels good, but then there are times where, like, man, I feel like, I got a little bit more if I was using a regular bat.
You can watch the full interview at youtube.com/athletics or listen at athletics.com/A'sCast.
Streaming from NBC Sports, A's Cast Live continues with Chris Townsend.
All right, Doug Glanville from ESPN, The Athletic. He also does work with the Chicago Cubs. He's coming up right now. Then we're going to have our conversation with Shea Langeliers, and we'll have some new video we're unveiling. Get to know Shea Langeliers. But here is one of the top voices and personalities in our game, Doug Glanville. Doug Glanville on the program here on A's Cast Live. We tell you he might be the busiest man in all of baseball, and they're telling me now you've got a newsletter on Substack. Welcome to Glanville. You got more going on now.
Yeah, well, it was a little bit of a trade. Player to be named later. I didn't teach this semester, so usually I'm at UConn or somewhere. So I just said, okay, well, wait a minute. I got to get another job, though. What are we doing? So, so I launched this newsletter twice a week. Tuesday, Thursday usually are the posts, and it's just like a community. I write about any way baseball touches our world. and I can do it consistently. And I've been missing that rhythm that I used to love having. So it's a lot of fun because I really want to hear from the fans because I want them to know I'm a fan, right? I just want to talk baseball, and I've covered anything from having an alias on the road to like singing the 7th inning stretch to Jackie Robinson to, so every day I feel like baseball has this reach that can hit us in so many different ways. And I wanted to celebrate that. So it's been great. It's a subscription model, and you can sign up. You could directly message me. It's just very accessible.
So who were you on the road? Was it a rock star? Was it an actor? Were you James Bond? Who were you when you were on the road back in the day?
Well, the funny thing about that is part of the reason I wrote it is I kept my name. I didn't have an alias. And there was times that was probably a bad idea. The phone rings like, hey, man, can I get tickets to the game? It's like, who is this? I have no idea. So I would weather that. But I just felt like I want to just have my name. And yes, I was with a bunch of cast of, Disney characters and Tony Montana and all these cats. So, and I remember one of the stories I tell in the article is just about how the traveling secretary wasn't used to like rookies coming up and wanting aliases, right? That was like unheard of it. So in his day, so he got really upset at one of my teammates because he wanted an alias on the next road trip. He's like, who are these guys? They have one day in the big leagues and they want to be Babe Ruth and Lou Gehrig. And, it's like, so he had kind of had it. And I said, all right, let me not pile on here. So, so I just have fun with it and just write about anything, robot umpires, and just have a conversation with the audience.
Well, we got a lot to get into and a lot about, I know you're around the Cubs and also about the National League, but I wanted to start with the Athletics.
Yeah.
And with the A's being 15-15, and we're watching them come out of, whether you want to call it a rebuild, a remodel, retool, whatever you want to call it. When you're watching an organization come out of that and you're starting to see them win, and you're starting to see the young players, the light starts to go on, they start to get it. What are you looking for when you're watching a team like this?
I look for consistency. Because that starts to be the separator about like getting the rhythm every day. You get your feet wet as a rookie, you come up, you're like, oh my goodness, you're in cathedrals, you're trying to figure out where you are, and the ball's coming at you, and there's another game, and there's another game. And so at first it's completely overwhelming. But I think once you get into a rhythm and you start having success, then you try to figure out like what type of routines can I employ to give me consistency. And whether it's working with the staff, analytics, data, however way you frame it, you have to find a way to get after it again, because it's so easy to kind of say, well, hey, that went well, and then look up and you're 0 for like 17. So that's what I'm looking for, because there are incredibly and young, talented players that are shooting through the minor leagues, and a lot of them haven't had the familiarity of like kind of failing a little bit over a course of a season, all those things that come with just like going through A ball for a year and AA for a year and AAA. And so, yeah, their talent is no question unquestionable, but it's just more about how they now take that performance and be able to do it every day. And because it's such a long season, and that usually reveals a lot.
All of a sudden you got a team that's starting to have some success, and it's that flirt with 500. What advice would you give a lot of these young players who are having success for the first time? There'll be a little failure, but having success, but going forward, trying to get away from that 500 level.
Well, 500 is a perfect example, because don't look forward and don't look back. You're right there. It's like, because once you start worrying about, I'm about to catch the Mariners or whatever, or once you start worrying about who's behind you, you kind of get in trouble. I mean, they talk about baseball being an even keel, but I think part of that even keel is like the perspective of like trying to keep things in front of you too. You're like, okay, one pitch at a time. I got to really figure out like what's the plan. I can't go 7 for 3, in my next at bat. I have to. And it's so hard because, you do everything right. You hit a line drive right at the shortstop. You break your bat in 35 pieces, and it bloops over the pitcher, and you get a double. So it's an unfair, cruel at times balancing act, but it is that calm that kind of takes you through, going through all of it. And so they're in a good spot. They're at 500, and you're like, okay, wait a minute. Now we're hanging with this division, and there's some teams that are beatable, and you start gaining that confidence. And then soon you eliminate that kind of awe for the other team. You start to go, okay, I just have to have a plan. And, because I know when I first got up to the big leagues, I was like, wait a minute, that's actually the Expos. That's actually the Expos.
Yeah.
This is not on Stratomatic. This isn't me playing wiffle ball. That's the real team across there. And it took a while to just let that kind of like be something I wasn't blown away by.
Yeah, you're actually, this is actually the Phillies, and my home fans boo me. This is their big leagues. In your travels throughout the season, Sunday Night Baseball, you'll get a chance to see a lot. Obviously, it's very early, but one trend with the A's and with all of baseball, we're starting to see more contact. Is this something that you're seeing and you guys are checking in on? I know, at least for the Athletics, not striking out as much. This seems to be a good trend.
I do. I remember going, whether it's the Dodgers, Padres, I was like, oh, wow, this is like number one in contact rate. You do see some of the numbers where there is a little bit more contact. And I'm seeing a few pitchers that are like, okay, I could throw 93, 94 and just move it around a little bit. So I don't know whether the analytics have gotten away from certain things. I'm sure the data still shows throw harder you have, the movement that you need, the shape of the pitch. Players and pitchers are advancing still on some level based on their metrics to a certain degree, right? Your recognition of pitches, the shape of your pitches, the velocity, the spin rate. But you'd like to think that, hitters are also making some adjustments as they sort of familiarize themselves with like such velocity and different shapes that start to repeat itself. But it does seem like there's just more contact. And what I love about that is the chance to just see the athleticism in the field, just to see games that, moving at a quicker pace and just getting the whole team involved. And that's a lot of fun.
All right. Jason Stark put it out on Twitter today. You guys got a new podcast, and I didn't get to listen to it, but I just saw you guys are going to be talking about the Cubs. And there was like a question mark in his tweet about you possibly getting stuck in the ivy at Wrigley Field. Is it true you actually got stuck in the ivy?
Now, I don't know if I got stuck. I'd say I got absorbed into the ivy, maybe something like that. Like there's a photo. I think it's one of my baseball cards where I'm like sinking into the ivy. Like I caught the ball and I'm just like, so it definitely can eat you alive. There's no doubt. Now, if the real full story of not just the big leagues, but twice in a week, and when I was playing in Cape Cod Baseball League for the summer, I got stuck in the fence twice in the week. And they weren't ivy. It was chain link fence. So one was when the ball was by the fence and I was trying to get the ball out of the gap and hit the cutoff man. I tried to be too cute, and I did the slide around the ball to try to pop up, pick it up, and throw, and I slid right through the fence. So I got stuck in the fence. They had to stop the game because I couldn't get out. And the umpire actually pulled me out of the fence. He had to like peel the chain link. And then, of course, you would think that's like, oh, that's once in a lifetime. Of course, the next game, we go on the road, and the guy hits a home run in batting practice. So I think I'm going to jump over the fence and scale the chain link, and it's like a kind of a 7-foot fence. And then I try to jump over the other side, and my foot gets caught behind me. So then I was like, I'm actually stuck again in a chain link fence. So I needed help to get out of that. So I said, the ivy is real mild compared to those two experiences in Cape. So I feel pretty good about it. As long as you're not allergic to ivy, I can work with it.
I can imagine the coaches going, isn't this guy an Ivy League guy? Does he keep getting stuck in the fence?
Yeah, like what is he doing?
Yeah. We saw the Chicago Cubs early, right?
Yeah.
So they go over to Japan, didn't look good. They come back, we see them early, and it was like, wow, this is an athletic, this is a really interesting team. And then they have played really well. I know you're around the Cubs, but really kind of the dominance of the National League so far. When you look at between the two leagues, you start throwing in the Dodgers and the Mets and the Padres and the Cubs. And there seems to be not only the Cubs, and you can speak to them, obviously, but also really the National League seems to be a kind of a better league right now.
I agree with that 100%. I mean, we asked Rob Townsend of the Phillies about that, and he's like, yeah, there's just a lot of good teams. And right out of the gate, I've seen the Braves, who are now hot. They were struggling. Padres, Dodgers, Cubs, Phillies. It's like, whoa, Mets. I mean, there's a lot of really good teams, and you don't want to take any of them for granted because it's like seems like anybody can knock you out. The Cubs are just the team right now. First of all, they're scoring runs, just unbelievable rate. They are taking their walks. They're very disciplined, and they're great on the bases. And when you have like spark plugs, Kyle Tucker looks like 10 MVPs right now. And then you have guys like Pete Crow Armstrong, young guys that are just turning over the lineup with just like sheer grit and excitement. They have a lot of pieces. So I think my question for them is will their bullpen be able to hold up? Because it seems like they're still figuring it out and who's doing what. And we had Jim Deshaies on our podcast in Starkville, and he said that, I think they need a third baseman at some point, like a real like steady producer. But if they're playing this well, that's a move you make at the trade deadline. And then all of a sudden you have that kind of final piece.
Let's end on this. Offense is flat. We've changed rules. Things are good. Like time of game is down. Stolen bases are up. We're seeing the rule change, but offense remains flat. Have you put your finger on it? Why you think it is, and could there be another change coming to try and get some more action going on in our game?
It's just hard to hit. It just is. This is an era that it's hard to reverse what has been revealed about pitching, and that when you have specialization in your bullpen and you have different guys that can match up well against everybody in your lineup, and you have depth in your pitching in terms of a lot of different looks and arms, you have high velocity, great shapes, and constant evaluation on how to make something more missable, so to speak. I think it's hard to hit and just to be consistent and try to square things up. So I think the pitchers are just going to be ahead at some period of time, but the fact that they can make more contact is a positive. Now it's like, can you make good contact? Can you drive the ball? And these things are tough because when you hit the ball, the defenders are exactly where they're supposed to be. So it is advantage pitcher, and yes, it is something that the game has proven, the league and commissioner's office, that they're willing to make changes if it's in the best interest of making the game more marketable, more exciting, more watchable. And that's just important for the business of the sport.
Well, whether we're watching you or listening to you on a podcast, and now we got welcome to the Substack, and we got your welcome to Glanville. We'll be reading you, all the different platforms. Continued success. Nobody better in the business.
Chris and team, thanks you, and always a pleasure to be on A's Cast.
It is always. That's a good get right there, Cody. That's a very good get. I mean, that's Sunday Night Baseball on ESPN, Marquee Sports doing the Cubs, the Athletic. He's even a professor at the University of Connecticut, UConn. He's a fascinating individual. Now he's got his newsletter on Substack.
Yeah,
hardworking man, very, very bright. And then, of course, you see Doug Glanville all through the playoffs.
Some would say maybe the smartest man in baseball. Isn't what we started calling on this show years ago?
I thought that was Breslow.
Well, true. Yeah. They're both Ivy League guys.
It's more Ivy League guys. That's what promoting Ivy League guys. All right. Do we have to get to it right away?
Let's see, a minute and then 9. We have a few minutes. The interview's 9.5 and the video's 10 or a minute. So we're at like 10.5 minutes. Yeah, actually, we need to get to it.
Okay. We got 2 things here for you. It's a new thing we're going to start doing. And in spring training, we get the players and we do a lot of fun stuff. But a lot of times fans who don't go to the ballpark, they don't get to see it because it's stuff that plays on the scoreboard in between innings. So we have said, hey, listen, give it to us and let's have some fun with it. So you are going to hear my interview with Shea Langeliers. But before we do that, we're going to do a little segment called Get to Know. Here is getting to know your catcher, Shea Langeliers.
Shea Langeliers, catcher, Baylor University. My dad was born in '69 and then graduated high school in '86. So the '69 and '86 Mets. Grew up a big Mets fan, and then obviously loved the name Shea for Shea Stadium. And middle name's Ryan after Nolan Ryan was his favorite player. I tried to major in computer science at Baylor. It was just a lot of hours, especially in season. I wanted to be like a computer programmer or kind of study astronomy. I've always found astronomy interesting, so something like that.
Your favorite road trip city?
It's kind of a cheat, but I love playing in Arlington just because that's where I'm from. I get to stay at my own house, so I'm always comfortable there. Grew up in Texas, but if I had to pick one where I didn't live, going to Anaheim's pretty cool. Staying on the beach is awesome, so that's a good spot. Most famous person in my contacts. Marquee.
Now, I want everybody to know that before we did the interview today with Shea Langeliers, I had to bust his chops on the Marquee question. I'm like, come on, that's the best you got. That's the best you got, most famous person. But when we do these down to spring training and these guys answer, Brent Rooker talked about being a lawyer. Now he's talking about computer science. Scouts go and they look at your ability to play the game. They evaluate you as a player. Now, a good scout then will really want to find out about who you are, what you're all about. We have a lot of very intelligent guys. Intelligence plays. We don't think about that, But when we do these, we don't have guys that just go, does somebody else want to be a stockbroker? We don't have guys who go, I just want to be a baseball player. I just want to be a ball player. We have a lot of guys, went to school, educated, and when asked, what would you do if you're not doing baseball? They're talking about some real quality professions. Not, I don't know, I'm just a ball player.
I was here to help the ball club.
Yeah. That's what you want, right? When you got people getting back to beyond the physical part of our game, there's a lot of quick thinking, critical thinking. There's things you've got to be good at to be at the highest level of professional sports. It's just not how hard you throw it, how far you hit it. There's a lot that goes into it. But earlier today, we were able to catch up with Shea Lang.
You can say goodbye too, because this is going to end the show.
I will be off tomorrow. It is a day game. We will be back on Friday. What time will we be back? It'll be in South Florida.
1:30, so an hour earlier.
1:30 time back here in San Francisco. The Athletics up against the Miami Marlins. Not your Florida Marlins, your Miami Marlins. Fish A's, the matchup of the year. We'll be back Friday, 1:30 A's Cast Live, but we're going to end it. Really good guy. Very special to this organization. Here is the catcher of your Athletics, Shea Langeliers. This is always a special trip for you. How good is it just to be home and sleep in your own bed?
Yeah, it's it's obviously it's great. I think you kind of take it for granted sometimes in the off season when you're grinding through 162 games. Just being able to get 3 or 4 days at home, get to see your family, your close friends, and stuff like that. It's huge.
Yeah, to have the parents, and I know your wife and her family, you have a big group there. It's just, some guys struggle when they go back home. Obviously, you haven't. It's got to be very comforting having everybody there at the ballpark.
Yeah, for sure. I think just getting to see all those people, just the comfortability factor of having them around and spending your mornings with them, and then heading to the ballpark and then getting to play baseball on top of it is it's special.
And then there's just certain places, like when you step into the building, you feel all hitterish. It just feels good to be here. You see the ball well. With the dinger yesterday, that's now 8 home runs in this ballpark. What is it when you step on this field, you just go, yeah, I'm ready to rock?
I think it's just kind of just being home in general. It just puts you in a good state of mind. You're happy. Your family's there. Just honestly, just feel more at ease, more comfortable. I don't know if it specifically has anything to do with the ballpark. I think it's more about just being home.
Let's talk about the bullpen. The bullpen in wins this year has a 0.67 ERA, which is absolutely outstanding. Just talk about the bullpen and catching these guys and how good they've been in your 15 wins.
Yeah, they've been great. Obviously you're going to have your ups and downs through 162 games. It's so many games. We're going to have nights like we had last night. It's going to happen. There's no way around it. But as a whole, as a unit, they've done a great job, like you said, and the 0.67 ERA in the games we've won is, it just shows you. And they come in when the game's close and we have the lead, they're getting the job done. And, that's all we can ask of them.
How important is it as a catcher that you really get to know all these guys? And sometimes guys are coming up and down from Las Vegas, but because these are the high leverage moments in the game, you need to know how these guys tick, how they react, what's it like when the bullets are flying, how do these guys perform? So just how important is it to get to know them personally and really know who they are and what their game's all about?
Yeah, it's super important. Probably the most important thing is me knowing each of them individually, off the field, on the field, everything, kind of just who they are as a person, how they think, stuff like that. Because, on any given night, any pitcher can come into the game and, not have a certain pitch, and we've got to reroute, or they're not comfortable doing a certain thing, and we've got to, change the game plan. So it's kind of, you always start with your A plan, and then you could be on B, C, D, by the end of the night. So you just got to be able to, be quick on your feet, think on the fly, and knowing each individual guy helps that out tremendously.
Let's get into JP Sears, because I think this is really interesting, right? When you grow up left-handed, your weapon is you get lefties out, like you dominate lefties. Well, now you get to the big leagues, and now they stack all right-handers against you, so that weapon's gone, right? So you need to have something as a left-hander when you don't throw super hard that comes in on right-handers, right in on their hands. To watch JP Sears evolve, to have that sweeper that comes in on the righties, to be able to throw the fastball inside, kind of the game plan at him. Talk about he's evolved into a guy that's doing real well getting righties out.
Yeah, just to start with him in general, he's a bulldog, man. He's going to go out there every fifth day. He's going to give you everything he's got, regardless if he has his stuff or not. He's going to empty the tank, and then on top of that, he's one of the hardest working people I've ever been around, and he makes the people around him better too, just by how hard he works and the greatness he strives to accomplish, essentially. And but yeah, his development. I've caught him so much at this point that we basically think the same when he's out there on the mound, so it goes pretty smooth. And us just kind of figuring it out together. Him tweaking with his arsenal here and there, making adjustments, and then me just continually getting to catch him and get more and more comfortable together. And that's how you have to get what you have to do to get big league hit.
Something that we never talk about, because we talk about these pitchers, they go to the pitching labs and they're always working on new stuff and new pitches. The sweeper was the rage. Now it's the kick change. But what people don't think about is you've got to learn those new pitches and you've got to understand what they do. No one ever talks about the catchers. Everybody just talks about pitchers changing. What's that like from the time you're at Baylor to where you are now? There's new pitches that you've never seen before, and you got to learn how to deal with them.
Yeah, I think, with as prevalent as that stuff is in the game now, when a guy is working on a pitch, even up to the point where they're ready to break it out in a game, I would say more often than not, it's pretty inconsistent. It's not going to do the same thing every single time. So you kind of you can't really expect it to, let's just say on a sweeper, the average is like 15 horizontal. It's not going to be 15 horizontal every time they throw the new sweeper. So it's little things like that, and you just have to be aware of, if, like for example with JP, it's like he's got his sweeper down. I pretty much know I can expect what it's going to do every single time. But other times when you make a little adjustment, it's like, okay, I got to be more on my toes, and this might not be as consistent as I think it's going to be.
Luis Severino, I say this all the time. When you play in New York, we're talking Yankees and Mets. When you play as long as he did, pitched in all those playoff games, you can't be soft. You're not going to be a soft dude. No, and you bring him in to be the guy. What's it like developing this relationship with him? Obviously, he is such a special talent.
Yeah, it's been awesome up to this point. Just how he thinks about the game, how everything he does, is intentful and there's a purpose behind it. It's honestly just to watch how he goes about his day. It's just the little things that when you say somebody's truly a big leaguer, it's kind of like you want to be a sponge and kind of just take all that stuff in and just watch how they operate and how they do stuff. And obviously I'm on the receiving end of that too, just getting to, catch him and understand how he thinks. And, it's getting smoother and smoother.
All right, we played before you came on the Get to Know Shea Langeliers video that you did in spring training. How many times have you had to explain, I'm named after Shea Stadium, my middle name's Nolan Ryan? How many times have you had to do that?
I've had to do it a lot over my lifetime for sure. Just explaining my dad was a Mets fan growing up because my grandpa was a Yankees fan, so they had that natural going against each other. My dad was born in 1969, the 69 Mets. He graduated high school in 86, the 86 Mets. So you just kind of have that connection to him, and that's kind of how it happened.
Well, thank God it was Shea Stadium. You could have been named City after City Field.
I've gotten that a lot too.
All right, let's end on this. You can't tell me the most famous person in your Rolodex is Mark Kotsay. There's got to be somebody else.
I'm going to stick to it. I'm going to stick with Mark Kotsay as the most
You're
famous
going
person.
Kotsay, the 17-year big leaguer, your manager?
Yeah.
Oh, God. That's something, too, that's it's very important. People just don't know. Catching is so different because you're the only position where you look at everybody and they look at you. And you really are. If there is a quarterback, we know how important the quarterback position is in football. You really are the catcher is the quarterback. Everybody's looking at you. You've got to have the relationship with Scott Emerson. You've got to have the relationship with Mark Kotsay. It is important that you have that because he's got to trust you, right? Because he's going to ask you, does this guy have it? I mean, there's a lot of honesty that has to go on between you and the manager.
Yeah, 100%. I think that honesty and relationship just it comes naturally the more games you play. The more experiences you have, the more ups and downs that you go through. It's just that's going to get that relationship, that honesty, that trust is going to get better and better. And then that's winning ball clubs obviously have that stuff down. That stuff goes over smoothly and transitions smoothly and stuff like that.
Hey, great stuff as always. We appreciate it. I know it's great to be home. Enjoy. Keep raking at Globe Life Field, and we'll see you back in West Sacramento.
Yes, sir. Thanks, Towny.
A's shortstop Jacob Wilson joined Towny on A's Cast Live to discuss the hitting insights he's gained from his father, Jack.
The main thing for me has always been the hands. Being able to push the hands back into a certain slot that I want him to be in to produce as much force as I can. We talked about kind of throwing a punch. Like you don't want to throw it from a very small angle. You want to really wind
static.
Out.
You don't want to be still static.
Yeah, you don't want to be static. You kind of want to reach back and be able to produce as much power as you can. So that's always kind of where the hands come from. Being able to push the hands back and really getting into that stance when you want to hit is kind of like a basketball defender. You don't want to be you don't want to stand up too much because the guy can go around you. You don't want to be too low. You kind of want to be right in that sweet spot. So just being able to get to that point and being able to get the hands back where they need to be and just being ready to hit. These guys throw a lot of strikes. They throw a lot of good pitches. So just be able to be as good spot as I can is kind of the main approach.
You can watch the full interview at youtube.com/athletics or listen at athletics.com/A'sCast. This has been a presentation of The Athletics.